Hi, I'm Courtney. Welcome to Something Positive for Positive People. And I may or may not be wearing pants, but today's guest will never know, and neither will you as a listener. It is 6 a.m. here in St. Louis, Missouri, and our guest today is coming to us from Japan, where it's what, 11 p.m.?
It's 9:15.
Oh, it's not 15? Yeah, we jacked
Yeah,
that all the way
I
up.
know.
But I'm glad to have you here. So today we got Lauren, who is 22 years old. What's your ethnicity, Lauren?
I'm Hispanic.
Okay, and then you work in what are we gonna say you work in?
I work in Japan. I'm a Japanese English exchange teacher. I
Oh,
teach
okay.
English though.
Okay, I wanted to say you teach English, but I didn't know if you were there like temporarily or anything like that, so I didn't want to say the wrong shit. And what is your marital status?
I'm single.
Oh, single and dating, ready to mingle. um,
Yeah.
and what type of like relationships have you historically been in? Are they monogamous, non-monogamous, or what?
I'm monogamous.
Okay, and interested in men or women, or both?
Women.
Okay, awesome. Well, I didn't mean to say awesome like some dude who's like, yeah, that's
I know
hot,
what you
like getting excited. You probably see it in my eyes, like my eyes got big or whatever. And what is your condition?
I have herpes.
And you told me before we got on here that you didn't know which type, and that's just because the medical, well, you found out in Japan. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I found out in Japan and just, there's a language barrier, I think. So a lot of it was even if I had like an interpreter's help, which I did, my Board of Education really helped me out, but they kind of didn't really know what it was, and they were even telling me they're like, oh, it can be cured, and I was like, oh, so that's the kind of level of like you know
Yeah.
misinformation that we have here. So and they didn't know what type. I don't even know if they really knew what that there was different types. I'm kind of they say Inaka, so I'm kind of countryside here, so I don't
Oh,
really know.
I gotcha. I gotcha. So when you were, well, first off, how were you diagnosed? Like, what was going on to where you went and got tested?
Oh man, this is a crazy story. It's just, I came to Japan engaged. I had a fiance, and she came here with me, and just living life. Things were really hard. I think the adjustment wasn't too hard, but there's a lot of challenges that comes to moving abroad and being in a relationship, and we were newly engaged, so there's a lot of stuff going on. But um, you know, I had a breakout, a genital breakout, and it got really bad really fast, and I was really scared because I didn't know what it was, and my fiance said that she was clean, and I hadn't been tested since I was in college, probably my junior year. I just graduated, so this is my first year out of college. But I was pretty sure, I didn't have anything. And since she had just gotten out of the military, she's like, oh no, they test us all the time. Like, I'm clean. And I was like, okay. So when it started breaking out, I was really scared. I was looking at pictures on, Google of, STDs of anything, and it didn't look like anything. And I was just like, I checked herpes, I checked all kinds of things. Like, it was just awful. And I was in my class, I mean, my staff room, and I was sitting there, and it hurt so bad. I couldn't sit and I couldn't walk, and I was really, really scared. And so finally, I was just like, I need to go to the hospital. And so I went to like a gynecologist here, and in Japan, the gynecologist, the way it's set up is you sit in a chair and you have your feet spread, and what they do is like it rotates you up and then to the left, and there's this like curtain in front of you. So your legs are spread, and you're just there with this curtain in front of you, and you're just kind of treated like a piece of meat. And I remember when I got up in the chair, I just ripped the curtain back because I couldn't deal with like somebody just looking at me,
Yeah.
without having a face to my body.
You're like, I'm a
And I was,
person.
yeah, I felt so awkward and so like I was already, shaking and scared and upset, and it didn't help that when he saw it, he said, "Wow." And he said it in English. This is a Japanese man, went out of his way to like look at my condition, which was one I know really, really terrible. But he said, "Wow," and I was just like, I just started bawling. I was like crying, and my fiance at the time was just like, oh, I'm so like she wasn't allowed in the room. She's like, do you need me to go back there? I was like, no, no. I was just like crying. It was just terrible. But they did a swab test,
Okay.
and it came back negative.
Oh.
And so, Yeah, I was really surprised, and I was like, okay, it's not herpes. What is it? I was getting to the point where I was like, it's a flesh-eating disease. I don't know. I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
But then I got the flu-like symptoms probably 5 days after my breakout, and my breakout spread very, very quickly. Like, it was
What do you mean
very
spread? Like it covered more area, or did it
like
move somewhere else?
it covered a big area, and it changed like I don't really know how to describe it without being too,
There's no
just
too graphic. I mean,
okay. It was just, really scabby and like, pus, and like it got really swollen, and just like I had no idea, and like I said, like I looked at pictures of herpes and anything really, and like it didn't look like anything. So I was really concerned, and I was worried about getting, like a staph infection or something, like something, in that area that can easily get infected. And so I was like starting to look at tickets home, because I was like, how, or to Tokyo, to possibly an area with more with better doctors, I guess is a better word.
or like more
And
educated, more knowledgeable doctors on
yeah,
herpes in
yeah,
general.
yeah, exactly. Like somebody who this was their profession. But obviously I couldn't afford that. I just moved here, so I was like, just got a car and all this stuff I was paying off. And um, anyways, I got the flu-like symptoms, and I was, I had a really high temperature, and like I couldn't cool down, and so it was like 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning, and we had to call like my board of education to take me to the emergency room, and the doctors were trying to give me medicine for like a cold, and I was like, no, like look, like I'm having other issues, and I really need you to look. And at that point, we were at a better doctor, at what I thought was, and he refused to check me. He refused to look at it. And I was like, please, like I was literally begging him, and like my board of education doctor was just like, no, no, like
So you're
don't
like,
bother him,
please,
like
please look at my
yeah,
vagina. You never thought you'd
pretty
have to
much,
beg somebody to
right?
do that.
I was like, please, please, like I really need your help, like I'm scared. And he just gave me like stuff to help with the fever, and I went home, and the fever didn't go away for about 2 days, and then after that there was like a Red Cross hospital about 45 minutes from here. So I ended up going there, and then there they did a blood test, and then from the blood test they told me that I was positive
So
for herpes.
you tested positive. You didn't have your flu-like symptoms right away. It took maybe a week or so for you to get a real diagnosis and for you to
It said
begin to
two
treat it.
weeks.
2 weeks. So you had this. You were suffering essentially for two
Yeah.
weeks before anybody would give you the treatment that you needed.
Yeah. And then after that, they hospitalized me for 5 days since I stayed in the hospital. Because at that point, like it was so bad, like I couldn't walk. I could walk, but it was really painful and really uncomfortable, and it was like spreading to my thighs. And I don't know if it was just part of like my stress of being in a new country, and I just found out my ex wasn't gonna be able to get her visa, so she was gonna have to be sent home, and so I was about to deal with all of this alone. Like actually, she went back home the day after I got out of the hospital. So I was still having an outbreak. Like I had an outbreak probably for 2 more weeks after that. So it was a total of about 4 or 5 weeks that I was like dealing with that until I completely cleared up.
And then
And
this is new too. Like you just got to Japan. You were diagnosed when exactly again?
in October, early October, because by
Okay.
the time it cleared up, it was like Halloween.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Oh, so you did get to go out and party.
Barely. I was still dealing with some like anxiety and like
Yeah.
really, I was my ex just left, so I was like so alone and so sad. So I had a little bit of a party.
Okay. Okay. Now you're diagnosed and you go through all of that. Just the struggle of getting someone to really treat you. And
hmm
you finally get treated, the herpes goes away. Now what? Like now that the pain is going away, gone, the symptoms are gone visibly, what's happening now at that point?
Well, my relationship starts to fall apart. It was already, on the rocks, but after, after as it was happening, my ex is there, and I'm like, what the, what is this? And I don't understand. And I was like, really? Are you sure? Are you sure? And she was telling me, I don't think it's an STD, like, because she's like, I've had something like this before.
Huh?
And I was like, oh, okay. Exactly. That's what I said. So I was like, so you must have had herpes or had something. She's like, no, no, it's not herpes. And then when we found out that that's what it was, she was like, well, you must have gotten it from your ex. And, I dated a man in the past, and I dated him for 3 years, and then I dated her. And so that was kind of like a weird, area to navigate with her because she already didn't believe that I was gay. So, for her to like believe that I got this from a guy was just made it so much worse. And I was like, but anyways, I reached out to him and because I believed her. You're probably gonna get tired of me saying this, but I was really, really in love with this girl. I loved her so much, like I proposed to her and I was just crazy about her, like, and I wasn't even mad to think that maybe I got it from her. So like, but she was so persistent that I didn't get it from her, so I ended up asking him. And when I reached out to him at first, he was like, holy shit, like this is this is a lot, like okay. He's like, I'll go get checked. He's like, but just so you know, my current girlfriend has herpes. And I was like, oh, okay. So he's like, if I have it, I mean, I might not be able to tell, how long or really. And I was like, yeah, I don't know how that works, and I don't know if you can tell. And like I said, the doctors here told me that I got it recently, and I don't know if that's accurate, if you're able to
Right.
tell.
Right.
So they said, they're like, we think you got it within the past couple weeks. And I was like, okay. And anyways, he got tested, and then he let me know a couple weeks later. He's like, I don't have it. He's like, and even though my current girlfriend has it, he's like, I got a blood test. He's like, I promise, I checked everything I did, and I don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And for a little while, I was just really obsessed with this thought of like, who did I get it from? Like
Yeah.
where did it? I've only been with two people my whole life. I've been with him, and I've been with her.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just,
I know.
it had to be her. And I was like, for me, because our relationship was on the rocks, I saw it as something like, okay, maybe now this will be the thing that keeps us together. And I think that was a little ignorant, but, I was really crazy about her. I was hoping that this was going to fix us, and it didn't, because she really, really believed that she didn't give it to me. And later on, as we kept talking, then she tells me, she's like, yeah, well, when I had this sort of thing, I got tested, and one doctor said I did, and one doctor said I didn't. So I believed the doctor that said I didn't. And I was like, you should have gone with the doctor that said you did, like.
Mm-hmm. At least,
But
like,
I don't know.
if you're gonna be wrong on the side of caution, and
Exactly.
you're not alone, first off, in thinking or believing that having herpes is what's gonna keep you with a significant other. Like, I can speak from experience that, a lot of people would either look at it like, there's two ways, two of the ways that I know people have viewed it is, oh, okay, well, we both have it, so now we're gonna be together, yay, or we both have it, or and it's like, shit, I'm stuck with this person, like I'm not gonna be able to find any better. And I mean, that's awesome that you were on the side of, yay, we're gonna stay together forever. But do you think that well, I mean, I'm gonna throw my opinion out there, like, obviously that's not a good reason to stay with somebody, and because the relationship was on the rocks, like, I would say that if this ended up being the final straw that made you guys break up, do you think that that was a good idea, like a good thing that happened?
Well, it wasn't the thing that broke us up exactly. I think we had a lot of other problems, but it was a pretty big factor. And like, I was really pushing her to get tested because I was like, you're lucky you get to go home, because I had to stay here on this program. Like, I can't really break my contract. And she was supposed to come back. Like, she had a plane ticket already to come back. And because our relationship was just so rocky, she didn't come back. And like, I was just devastated because I was dealing with being in a new country, having an STD now, and my fiance. The way I phrase it, and I'll probably always say it, is she abandoned me here. We made this plan and this change of life to come here together, and then she didn't come back.
No.
So I was, I was really devastated that she didn't come back, and like I thought that was gonna be my breaking point, but I was really just dedicated to keeping us together, and but I was dealing with my identity because I've never been single very long. Like, when I broke up with that guy, I jumped into a relationship with her within probably a month, and I was with him for 3 years. But I mean, there was a lot of issues there too, because that wasn't my, that's not my
Right.
sexual orientation. I'm lesbian, so.
Would you say you were like,
But
you were with them to kind of prove to yourself that you could you should be with a man, or were you just doing that because, like, that's what you were supposed to do, quote unquote?
it was part of like what felt like I was supposed to do, and also because like he like was like my high school sweetheart kind of thing, sort of. So I just like, well, I think I'm supposed to be with him, and I was just, I didn't. Yeah, I just he was kind of like my knight in shining armor. Like, he's who I moved in with when I moved out of my house, and like I really wanted to move out, and so I just felt like I was kind of stuck with him. So finally, when I got the courage to, after a lot of other things, like there was a lot of, abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. So I finally was able to get out of that, and it was really great for me. But I jumped in with this girl, and man, I was just crazy about her. But our issue is was just had to do with trust, and I don't think that she cheated on me. I think it was just that she had it, and that I just hadn't caught it for the almost year that we had been together.
Yeah. So
So
I mean, and if she was diagnosed and it's like you have herpes, and then she's like, no, I don't believe it. I'm gonna get a second opinion, and the second opinion is no, you don't have herpes. Like that's what anybody would go with. Just depending
yeah,
on
that's exactly
your
what happened.
character and what type of person you are. Like there's I always tell the story of a friend of mine who she tried to get her ex-boyfriend to get tested so that she could figure out where it came from, and the doctor was like, oh, don't worry about it. If you don't have any physical symptoms, just wear condoms. And so he took that and ran with it. Like, he doesn't know if he
Yeah,
has it or doesn't, and then he was told use condoms. So he very well could have it and go off and have sex with whomever with a clear conscience, because the doctor A wouldn't test him when he asked for it, and B informed him that condom usage is going to keep it from spreading if you do have it. So it's just such an interesting like perspective in just how bad we want to, even if we're diagnosed, how bad we want to believe that we don't have it, or we look for any little glimmer of light or hope that our positive diagnosis was wrong, and then we take it and we're just like, yes, all right, that's it. Not all of us, but some of
yeah,
us may do that.
yeah. And I think part of me is a little bit like that too, because I'm hoping that I'll go home and they'll be like, I'll get tested, by an American doctor. They'll be like, oh no, you don't have it. But I'm kind of concerned, because then I'd be like, well, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
But
Like, is that like
I
super
mean,
herpes or what? We don't have a test for this one yet?
exactly.
uh,
But yeah, like after she went home and she didn't come back, I was really trying to make things work, probably up until about January, or about December. So we broke up January 1st, like officially.
mm-hmm.
And we were already not together, I think, at that point. Like, but I was still really hoping that we were gonna figure it out. But
Yeah.
I was actually the one who ended it, even though I feel like she was the one. I'm not sure. Just like, I
What?
guess the way I'm thinking about it is that, like, I feel like it was a big achievement for me, because I was really holding on to her, because I felt unlovable, and I felt like all these feelings that I think you hear about people feeling when they find out they have herpes, and I really felt those things. And I was really latching onto this person, because I was like, this is the only girl that's gonna love me, and and but
Like,
it
how
was really good that
hard?
I could break that off.
Yeah. It's like, how hard is it going to be to find somebody else who has herpes? When that is
Yeah.
so common, though. And now that I've gotten to a point where I've become open about it, I personally see just how common it is, just in people reaching out about the podcast, or reaching out about resources available in their area, or just local groups, support groups, or people who want to come out and tell a friend or a potential partner. When I became open about this podcast, a lot of my closest friends in real life reached out to me and were like, oh, I have dot dot dot, or I know someone with dot dot dot, and it's just crazy to see. Like, in hindsight, I spent 6 years almost just thinking that it was just me, or
Yeah.
thinking like that this was something so rare that I wouldn't find anyone A who also had it, or B who would be okay with the fact that I had it. And it just goes back to, well, one of the biggest takeaways from your story just now, is I'm glad that we did this, because we just did this like all of a sudden. We didn't have the conversation that I normally have way ahead of time and be able to get the thought process down. But I think that important takeaway here from your story is like you being able to. First off, let me ask you this: is this your first time talking about this openly with anyone?
Is it my first time talking about this?
Yeah, like as openly as you have been.
No,
Okay, because
actually,
you're very comfortable with it.
I've told some of quite a lot of people, mostly because I think being in Japan, I don't really have like social interaction. So when I meet other people who are on this program, and like they're really nice to me, and especially while I was dealing with what I was dealing with, like I went on a trip probably like the weekend after I had my foot was finally cleared up, and the girl that I went on the trip with, we just happened to meet up. We are both interested in this event, and we just ended up going, and we hadn't met before. And I totally word vomited like everything, and I was crying, and it was a mess, and I just told her everything, and she was really nice, but
Yeah.
you know, that kind of, almost everybody that I've talked to here, I think about 4 or 5 other people in this program know, my mom, my dad, my sisters know, and I've actually, you know, you're just saying, talking to people who, you know, you potentially want to date, I wasn't actively searching for anybody, because, you know, I just got out of a relationship, but I kind of found a couple girls who were interested in me, and I told them, and I was reading something about herpes, like how to come out to people about it, and like one of the tips that I got was like, tell them after 2 weeks, like let them know you, and then tell them after 2 weeks. And since I'm long distance and I'm talking to, you know, girls in America, it's, you know, you have time to get to know each other, and you don't right away have that like, you know, feeling of just like, man, I'm really digging you, and I want to take that on a physical level, you know. So we had a lot of time, but I would really shorten that from 2 weeks to about 2 days, 3 days.
Yeah. And
And I don't know if I was trying to scare them, but I was like, actually a couple girls I was trying to scare, but like, because I wasn't interested, and I'm not really good with saying no or like, okay, go away.
they're like, I have herpes, go away. And then like when you want to use it that way, because a few other people have talked to me about that on the podcast, and it doesn't
Mhm.
always work. They're like, oh, okay, well that's fine. That doesn't scare
Yeah,
me. I
that
like
hasn't
you.
worked for me.
Yeah. And people just think like it's never gonna work for the person I'm actually interested in. Like when I tell them I have herpes, they're gonna run for the hills. But someone I'm not
Yeah.
interested in, they're always like, oh, we can make this work. Like shit.
Yeah, actually everybody that I've told has been so understanding, and like, you know, they've been really supportive, and like, you know, they would say like, oh yeah, that's a risk I want to take or something, and even if we didn't like continue talking after that, because of other reasons, like, if everybody that I've told has been so understanding and so kind.
Yeah. And look at this guy. Oh my God. We look at this.
Oh,
The only
he's so
reason he's
cute.
only reason he's quiet is because I'm rubbing his head. Otherwise, he'd just be meowing at me for whatever reason. Oh my gosh! But uh, so with the more you've told people, the better you got at it. Would you say that like practice makes perfect, or experience put you in a position to be more comfortable with talking about it, and in talking about it, like it's not a big deal?
Well, I feel like it's still a big deal, and especially because, you know, the job profession that I want to go into when I go back home, like, might feel a certain way about me having an STD, that I'm kind of nervous about, you know, navigating that. So I
Hmm.
think it is a big deal in that sense. But, you know, when it comes to relationships with people, it's gotten better. And I think because, you know, when I was first telling people, I was really emotional, and I was just like, I was still with my ex, and I was still trying to work things out. And like, you know, these people that I was talking to, mostly it was just concerned about, you know, that about my relationship, that they didn't think that she was a good person for me, or that they were like, you know, she's really, you know, manipulative or something, or
Hmm.
emotionally abusive. And, you know, that's mostly what we talked about. And that's kind of what the conversation led to. But everybody that I talked to was just like, yeah, you know, I'm so sorry, or like, you know, that's terrible, or like, and I have a friend who has herpes or something like that, or, you know,
Yep.
so people have been really kind. And the only kind of negative, kind of weird moment I had was the first time I had somebody over at my house, just a friend, after I found out I had herpes, and I told them. And I guess she worked in a hospital before, so she was just trying to, like, you know, cover her bases. And she, like, you know, she brought a separate fork and a plate and, you know, cup, and, you know, didn't want to use my bathroom, and that was okay, and I understood that. But that was the first, you know, time that I had anybody, you know, I felt like that was like a change, you know, that's not something that would ever happen to somebody who doesn't have herpes, you know. So that was the first, like, oh, like I kind of feel like gross. You
I'd
know,
be
like I
more
feel like
offended. I'd be more
I
offended
know
that she thinks I don't wash my dishes or clean my bathroom than anything else. Like, what are
exactly,
you doing? And then
exactly.
if she works in the medical profession, then you would think that she understood that that's not how this works.
Right, right.
But that's really awesome. I'm very happy that you were able to get out of the abusive relationships for sure, and
Mm.
be able to just like go on. And would you say you're happier now than you were beforehand?
Oh wow, definitely. Like, so I was listening to the podcast that you did. I think the last two, and the one she said that herpes was the best thing that had happened to her. And I remember like thinking when I heard that I was like, wow, like I honestly thought that recently that I was thinking that, and I think it kind of combines with like I think that Japan's one of the best things that happened to me because it's been like the hardest time of my life when I
Yeah.
found out that I had herpes. Like before we started the interview, you were talking about people who were possibly feeling suicidal after they found out, and like that's definitely the level that I was at, and I was felt really alone, and like my ex had left, and my family's not here. I'm really close to my family. My family's been really supportive and like helpful, but like when I told them that I had it, some of my family was just like um, they were understanding, but they were also just like, there's only so much support I think I could get being so far apart, and like my family's not a really like touchy feely kind of people. Like we don't hug, kiss cheeks or nothing. And like being in Japan where nobody hugs each other, like all I wanted was just a hug, and I was just like, I just felt really, really alone, and like, I was doing a lot of self harm. Sorry, I'm gonna try not to get emotional because I mean, I've processed this, but like there's still times, where I feel, really like I don't like my skin, and like because I'm not on any medication while I'm here, I do feel like I get like breakouts on my lips still, like pretty like a lot, and so it's been kind of hard managing that, and so like sometimes I go through those moments where I'm just like, I wish I didn't have this, but before, I was really, really bad. I was drinking a lot, and I was, self-harming and having just a lot of time adjusting. And then, January 1st, I know everybody says New Year, New Me. Everyone's just like, shut up, it's still you. But really, for me, this year, like, has been a drastic, drastic change for me.
Hmm.
Like, I exercise almost every single day, and just recently I get up at like 6 a.m. and I run a mile every day, and like, I exercise, I run, and I'm starting to cook my own food because I came to Japan and my fiance cooked every day, which was great, but I I didn't know how to cook, so
Yeah.
I
Look
had
at
to learn how to
you,
cook.
learning new skills, incorporating good
Yeah,
habits.
yeah, and so it's been really, really good. And like, before I was really depressed and I wasn't getting anything done. And like, what did I do today? Today I updated my resume for when I go back home. And so it's just like those little things I'm just getting knocked off my list, and I just feel it's still a work in progress, but I'm definitely much happier, and I'm very happy that I've had the support that I've had.
Yeah, that's good, and I'm so proud of you, seriously, for being in a place
Thank
all by yourself and dealing with what you've dealt with, and I just in hearing you talk, like for someone who's newly diagnosed, um, I think that this is going to be very beneficial to someone like that to find out and be going through it, whatever it is that they're going through, and then be able to hear your perspective of on things. Because not only did you have to deal with the diagnosis in a new country while you got like your life's just getting started, and then bam, herpes. It's like, what am I
Yeah,
gonna do now? And when you say
exactly.
self harm, are we talking like just drinking behaviors, or like are we talking like physical harm?
Well, I was drinking a lot and just kind of being reckless, and I was cutting myself, and it sucks because I feel like I'm gonna have scars. I do have scars from this trip here. Like, I'm getting a tattoo while I'm here, and I'm gonna get like some of them covered up and stuff. But really, it's just I was cutting myself, and so it took. I'm not sure when I stopped, but I was telling my sister recently because she sent me this thing on Facebook with this really motivational speech, and the guy said, "What follows I am follows you." And I thought it was really moving, and I was like, I realized that I kind of started like conditioning myself to love myself more around October when I was journaling, And I was just so sad, and I don't know when I started or why I started, but at the end of my journal, I just started to say, "I love you, Lauren," and I was like writing this like love letters to myself that I loved myself, and really like I started to change, and I just progressively stopped cutting myself, and like I haven't cut myself at all this year, so it's been really good for me, and I'm like really happy. I mean, I still drink wine here and there, and
No one's gonna
but
stop drinking wine.
yeah, but I'm not drinking to fall asleep, and I'm not you know, not trashed every single weekend or something by myself. It's not even like I'm going out and partying. I'm just on the weekends just by myself in my house, my cat just super turned up.
Yeah.
um, but it's been a lot better, and I'm really happy. And exercising has really helped me too, like kind of that extra stress, like getting rid of that and keeping busy. Like I've definitely been fostering a lot of like my hobbies here,
Yeah.
like reading and writing and drawing. Just and I bought a ukulele, so
Oh
just
yeah.
anything. Yeah, yeah,
Wow. So I mean, just beginning to love yourself and
yeah,
pick up some new hobbies and just you got lost. You're getting lost in yourself. So after a relationship ended, you spent a lot of time with yourself. You
yeah.
dove down
Well, and
that.
I had never been single, so this is the first time that like I was ever single, and so I was just like, who am I? And I was like, wow, am I just herpes? Like this is what I have, and now I had to enter the world, the real world, with just this giant like I am herpes, and this is what I am, and like I was like I
Yeah.
hated that, and I just realized like really that's not a really big part of me. And when I was talking to these girls, and some of them knew me from the past, or some I just met, and they were really nice to me, like and they got to know me, and like even after I told them, they were just like, oh, that's not a deterrent, or like that really doesn't bother me, or we could just practice safe sex, like it's fine. And or like they were educated about it more than I was, because I think part of me was even afraid of looking things up, because I was like, I think when I found out, I was just like, I can't even kiss my kids, like I want to be a loving parent, like I can't kiss my own kids, and I was just like freaking out, and so I just kind of stopped looking stuff up. But
Mm-hmm.
they kind of encouraged me that I should be more educated, and that people are really kind, and I'm not defined by this. And I think herpes has been the best thing that's happened to me, as well as being in Japan, and having this such bad experience that I did here, and like really makes me feel bad that like Japan's sex education is, at least in this area, is not as great as like in America. And like I'm really happy to be going back home and like be able to get on medication to help with my breakouts and stuff, and find those resources that I just don't have here, and that I feel like a lot of Japanese people don't have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel like you left us with a lot to take away from, but is there anything that I haven't asked you that you want to be sure to leave with the listeners?
Well, I would just say I think that you should encourage your partner to get tested, because I think I wouldn't want to feel like I gave somebody something if they already had it. So like the girls that I'm talking to, um, you know, I'm not really eager to get into another relationship, because I'm thinking about doing this job that might take me overseas or whatever. And um, I tell them, like if we're together and we're intimate, like, and I give you herpes or something, like I don't want you to feel like you're stuck with me. And like I think it's really important for people to be educated and mature enough to handle the possibility of that, as well as and not feel like you're forced to be with that person, and like be mature enough to know that like this is a risk that I'm taking, and to really have those conversations with your partners about like, you know, do I really want to do this? Should we really do this? And like, what does this mean about us? And what if we don't work out? Like, am I willing to live with this just in case? Like, and I think that those conversations are important to have. And I'm really glad that I've had those conversations. And like, some people were like, okay, no. And some people were like, really, it doesn't matter. Like, if you give it to me, then, you're not stuck with me, So it's like, I don't know. I think that's a really important conversation to have with somebody. And it's okay to think long term, but like somebody who, just wants to be sexually active and not in a relationship. And that's just something to consider, to really try to do and like have those conversations.
Got it. So even though we're positive, it's also important for us to, not just settle on the fact that our potential partner is okay with us having herpes. It's important for
Mhm.
us to know what their sexual health is and for them to get tested as well, or just, I mean, I don't want to say be up to date on their STD testing, but for them to just be aware, like if we have herpes, ask them when they were tested, or
Mhm.
make sure that they specifically ask for STD testing, because we're the educators. The people who are living with herpes, we're the ones who are the educators. We're informed. We have our experiences to go off of. Whereas the stigma, and I mean, even your doctor who first diagnosed you, who hit you with the wow,
Yeah.
these are the people who are being heard. Like their opinions and uh, lack of experience is what is fueling the stigma. On top of us really being quiet about having herpes and what herpes is, because we're the ones who know, and for us to allow the stigma to dictate how we feel and what we believe about ourselves it doesn't serve us. It doesn't help anyone who is newly diagnosed. So I thank you for coming onto the show, especially so soon after your diagnosis, and
Of
for
course.
sharing with as many people as you have, and just being more so, I don't want to say 100% open, just because of your profession, which is also bullshit, by the way. Like, if you
Mhm.
can't do this
Thank you.
particular job because of herpes, then I hope that you're able to find something better. Um,
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy that I think this is a really great show, and I'm like gonna send this to my sister and to my the girl I'm talking to, and
yeah, send it
I'm
to
really excited
everybody.
to share it.
Please send it to everybody, and make sure you tell them to leave a review. Just because
Of course.
that's really helpful with like the websites promoting it and helping other people find it who may need it or not know that this is an available resource out there for them. So I appreciate that as well.
Of course.
All right, you can go ahead and say bye to the listeners.
Bye, listeners, and love yourself, and I love you.
That's so hippie of you.
I
I love it
know.
though. I love it. All right, y'all. This concludes this episode of Something Positive for Positive People. And for those of you who, well, that one person who might have just been wondering, okay, is he actually wearing pants? Yes, I'm wearing pants. Lauren, am I wearing pants?
Yes, you are.
So that answers that question. I can be found on Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, and Reddit at H on my chest. On Facebook, I'm just my real name. It's Courtney Brame. I have the Something Positive logo as my cover photo. Please, 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 if you like this episode, subscribe to the podcast, like it, rate it, review it, share it in your community, share it with anyone who you want to inform about sexual health. We're going to keep doing this. I mean, as long as people are willing to talk to me, I'm going to always have content for you guys. So if you know someone who is interested in speaking with me, or someone who would be a good guest to have on the show, maybe to reach out to, please send them my way, or you can send me their way. I don't have a problem with messaging people by recommendation, but due to the content of the show, it's tough to message people and get Facebook ads and Instagram follows, just because people don't necessarily want that association with the show, because they may think that you have herpes, or that the person who follows me or I follow have has herpes. I can tell you now, more of the people who follow me are people who either don't know they have herpes, or don't have herpes, or an STD for that matter. This is just an informative, useful tool that's evolving into something that is going to be a sex education tool, to say the least, and just a real good gateway for anyone who's newly diagnosed to be able to come onto the or listen to the show and snap out of that dark place faster and be connected to the resources and tools that they need in order to cope with their diagnosis, to get back into dating, to get the medical facts or treatments that are out there. So, like I said, just rate, review the podcast. I can be reached on all the social media sites at H on my chest. And if you have any questions or anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. Till next time, stay positive. I feel like I need to say that differently. That was real. Stay positive. Cheesy.